we might as well introduce ourselves
Yes.
to these people, because this is a different side of us.
Yes.
This will be a unique side of us than from our other podcast.
Yes, I think so.
We are without materials on this one, right? So this is good. This will
Lived
get the real
experience.
essence of who we are.
Yes.
Tell everybody about yourself while I get this ready for you.
So this is High Phrase Presents 90 on 90. Normally you hear me as the ALITE, Elite. In 1990, I was Arif Ali, an 11-year-old kid.
11 years old. This is so. Tell everybody though why we're starting at night. What we're doing here with this program.
Well, I think
before
it's
you
very
start.
appropriate being two people that have had very unique lived experiences in the 90s. Being in the year 2021 now. Probably the most important decade that we've lived, because it set the stage for what happened in the years 2000 and beyond. And this podcast is centralized around everything to do with the 90s.
It's true.
Sports, politics, news events, fashion, what was happening in the 90s, what we were doing in the 90s, in our lived experience in the decade called the 90s. So I was 11 years old, man. 11 when the 90s jumped off. Yeah, I was young, and I was very underexposed to the world around me because I was just coming out of a very regimented religious household. And it was a very unique experience compared to where I am and who I am now. Looking back at that kid, I don't think I would recognize that person.
Yeah.
And I think if we met around that time, I don't think we'd get along.
Maybe. I would have been 15.
Yeah.
So you would have been 11.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't have hung out or anything. You know what I mean? Like
No.
fat chance, of that happening. Even 20 and 15 probably wouldn't have happened. So, it took us getting this long for us to actually.
So you were living in Victoria at this time.
My name is Mike Oldham, and yes, I'm from Victoria. I grew up. I was a 15-year-old kid in 1990.
Wow.
And I should say that we're starting this off at 1990 right now, and that every week it's going to be a different year of the decade.
Yes.
And we're going to explore parts of that decade.
Yes.
That people might have forgotten about and things that they didn't know about, and also show how relevant it is to our lives today.
Absolutely.
Because as the men of the world today at 40 years old, we have an extra special little folder of knowledge in our head. And that was that we got to experience the 90s at its fullest and its best. We weren't too old. We weren't too young. We were coming of age.
Right in that sweet
Right
spot.
in that middle, in that sweet spot of the 90s, man. So we really have a lot that we could say we enjoyed the fruits of all the 90s, right? I was 15 years old, and I'd been to, I've been through a lot at that point in my life, and man, it's, one thing I do remember about the 90s is, and this is kind of a crazy way to start this all off, but people will understand this is how we are, right? 90s was, I think, as good as it was also the most challenging respect-wise in the world. People did not respect people a lot back then. And what I mean by that is that, there was a lot of chauvinism, a lot of racism, a lot of,
Open.
It was open,
Yeah.
and there was no end in sight. Even women at that point really were getting a really crappy shake.
If you got in your
life.
feelings, you were considered a bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like men didn't talk to men like they do today.
Nah.
It was a very standoffishy, hard time, and there was lines drawn in the sand all through the 90s with all cultures and races and people. Everybody, had their side, and your mission in the 90s was to grab as many people on your side as you can. It wasn't inclusion back then.
No, definitely not.
So being a young kid, being 11, being 15, we were exposed to a lot of practices and behaviors that, dude, just wouldn't make it now.
Well, I can tell you, that's around the time. I have an older brother who's 3 years older than me, so he was 14, and his experiences were very different from mine. So when I remember being exposed to a lot of music and things that an 11-year-old should not be exposed to. And one of the first movies I remember seeing that stood out to me in 1990 was Scarface. That's when I was introduced to it.
Yeah.
So as an 11-year-old, seeing Tony Montana, the whole story, immigrant coming in, taking over the world, was so impactful. It was massive.
Yeah.
And one monumental moment in my life, I remember, same year, there was these brothers that lived in East, because I grew up in Southeast Vancouver, and there were these two brothers that were 16, 17, and that summer, the summer of 1990, they both pull out new Corvettes, one red, one black. And they live in a modest, middle-class home. Parents worked. But these two kids all of a sudden have Corvettes.
Oh, wow.
And Corvettes are fucking expensive.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember being an 11-year-old kid and seeing these two driving that. And they both have a car each, and they both drove them separately. Let's not drive together.
Yeah.
So whenever one of them drove throughout the block, you'd see the other. There was a red one and a white one.
Yeah.
Red one drove past, white one drove past. And I remember thinking as an 11-year-old, there's no way a 17-year-old should have that car.
Yeah.
And I was able to put two and two together pretty quick, but like, okay, that's the way to go.
That's the hustler way.
That's the way to, you want things,
Yeah.
you want things to happen immediately, that's the way you got to go. And they kind of set the tone for the rest of my teenage years.
Yeah, because the 90s was really about that, too. It became, like, super easy to get and do things.
Yeah.
All of a sudden in our lives.
No cameras.
Right? There was no cameras. Like,
Yeah.
it was a really, the time, you know, when you were a bad kid growing up in those days, which most kids were in the 90s, like, let's face it, like, there were some kids that didn't, but because of the culture changing so much in the 90s, it created a lot of, I don't like to say bad kids. I just like to say, you know, misunderstood youths.
Yeah, well, I think it's inevitable, man. Like, you know, kids will get away with the shit that they can get away with based on the time that they're in, right?
Yeah.
You can't really get away with much now because cameras are everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, if you're doing shit, you want to get caught. You're just an idiot.
Yeah.
Because
it
how
is.
do you hide from it?
All right, so here on the 90s, and just so you guys know, we are always exploring new creative entries from people, titles and names and segment ideas, everything that you can do, you can think about in the 90s. You know, write in, hit us up on social media. It's ITS_ALITE.
Yes.
Or you can go to ACDJ Vancouver. On any of the social media stuff and send us some messages. Tell us what you want us to research about the 90s.
You can also hit us up on our High Phrase Podcast Insta. It's just
Yes.
at High Phrase Podcast. So you can find us.
Yes, we're all over the place.
Yes.
but not but grounded
In a
in one
focused
spot,
way.
in a very, very focused way.
Yeah.
So that's why we on every single episode of this 90s show, we're going to go through four different topics. What'll happen is at the end of the show, we're going to draw ping pong balls and decide what year is coming up next.
I like that. Still.
Yes. Only problem is today, I forgot the ping pong balls, which is a great start for our 90s show.
That's great. So what we can do, we'll just write it on a piece of paper and just toss it up in the air.
We'll both write a year, and then we'll take the medium year in between that year, whatever it is.
That works.
Right? So
That
if you
works.
pick 92, I pick 94, 93 is the year.
Right.
Right?
I like that.
So on this one, we're going to explore the year of 1990 because 1990 was the breakthrough year. And if you weren't alive then, I remember 1989. And I remember how... One thing I remember about 1989 the most is the clothing and how crappy and how people were still wearing corduroy pants and rugby pants. But 90s were promising to bring us in something big because in 1990, that was the year rap became known.
Yeah, kind of kicked down mainstream doors.
Kicked it right down in 1990 with who was the big hit?
Oh, man. I hate using this as the barometer, but you're talking about Hammer, right?
Yeah, Hammer.
MC
man.
Hammer.
Hammer
Yeah.
brought it home really back if you think about 1990s, right?
You can't really hate, though. In the moment, it's a great song.
Yeah.
You know, you got that Super Freak sample from Rick James
Yeah.
going further back into the 80s now.
Yeah.
But it's a great song, man.
And we'll touch on that. But one of the biggest things about 1990s that we're going to start off with tonight, I'm excited to hear it when you thought it was sports.
Ooh, yeah.
Now, this is a big passionate thing between both of us. We're both
So influential.
sportsy guys.
Yeah.
Who was your 90s sports team? Who was the team you were following in the 90s?
Houston Rockets, Akeem Olajuwon, and that dream team.
Akeem Olajuwon.
And
Oh,
that dream
nice.
team. That was my team.
Oh,
and in
nice.
hockey, it was Lemieux and the Penguins.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were amazing. So
Dominating.
I'd have to say in the 90s, I was a Shaq fan.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was more of a Penny Hardaway fan, but I actually really liked Shaq too back then when before he was a police officer. and so I used to have all Penny Hardaway shoes, and so I was a
Those are
Magic
expensive,
fan.
yo.
They were expensive back then. Remember, they were $200 shoes in the 90s.
Foam posits? Oh,
yeah.
my God. I mean, they're still popping. People still want to buy them.
Those blue ones that looked like the shell or whatever. Those
Yeah.
were so here's a funny story. I went and bought those, and then that night I went to the YMCA to play basketball in my new Penny Hardaway shoes.
Yikes.
Now, mind you, I'm a what am I 90? So I'm 16 probably at that time. 200, 15 pounds probably
you're
rolling around.
huge.
I had a growth spurt in like 1990. 100 pounds I grew, and first cut I did in that shoe blew the tire. Ripped it to shreds. Cool, because Penny Hardaway's a little thinner, right? So I took them back, and I got 3 pairs of shoes equal to the pair of shoes. It was
Makes
crazy
sense.
times. But sports was very big in my life in the 1990s.
From the beginning, you were into sports,
Always.
playing sports.
Always.
Right.
Grew up in a family that made you play sports.
Mm.
Right? And grew up, on Vancouver Island where there was nothing to do but play sports.
That's a good outlet.
Right?
Yeah.
What were you playing back then?
Honestly, I was humiliated into playing sports. I sucked at everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 11, 12, 13, probably till I was like 14-ish. I sucked at all sports.
Oh, wow.
So I got dominated. I was always picked last.
Mm.
Yeah, I never got to play when all the good players were playing.
Yeah.
So I was a spectator for a lot of years. And
Oh,
then
wow.
when I hit 15, I was like, fuck this. Got to
Yeah.
get good at this shit. And just spent an entire year working on my basketball game before I
Oh,
got
so you're
good.
just shooting hoops.
By myself.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, dribbling, shooting,
Put it in work.
nonstop, and that's it. And then I came when I was 16, and from there made all the teams and started to kick ass.
Putting in work. I
Yeah.
remember going to the park playing basketball back then. And once we get Jesse on, he'll be able to attest to this. But I was a guy you didn't want to play basketball against.
What was your go-to?
I did a little move called the Chicago Bull. Right?
Okay.
The Chicago Bull. Running right down the middle of the lane, moving everybody out of the way and missing a layup. Right? Going to dunk it and not even getting close.
Yeah, you were the guy nobody wanted to play against.
I did the no-look passes to my teammates that weren't ready for no-look passes. They weren't ready for my skills back then. I realized I was a little bit maybe ahead of the curve.
Advanced.
A little advanced, yeah. Jesse will tell stories about the basketball stuff, and he was an amazing basketball player. But yeah, I was the same as basketball. So basketball was my thing, man. I loved it back then, and I drug up a little jaunt down memory lane for you.
Okay.
Because I know you're a basketball fan.
Yes, definitely.
Fanito.
Obsessive a little bit.
We're going to go back to beautiful year 1990, November 2nd, 1990. And this game is still in the record books as being one of the greatest games ever played in a basketball game. It is a game that had the most scoring ever in a game with no history, and it still stays to this day. What's funny about this game, it was the Golden State Warriors versus the Denver Nuggets, and Golden State ended up winning that game 162 to 158.
Jesus Christ.
162 to 158.
Holy
Highest game in history, still no overtime.
God damn.
And what's really unique about this is this was Denver and Golden State. But Denver that year was the worst, had to be one of the worst teams ever,
They were
man. They got
trash.
scored an average of 120 points every game.
Yeah, they were trash.
On them.
They had nobody.
This was the Denver Nuggets team in 1990. And let me see if you know any of these guys. Michael Adams,
Nope.
T.R. Dunn,
Nope.
Todd Leachy,
Nope.
Orlando Woolridge.
Yes.
Now, Orlando had some game.
He had game. Yeah.
Orlando was no joke.
Yeah, he was almost 20 points per game his whole career, pretty much.
And I think Orlando
Yeah.
has the record for the most points scored without missing a shot,
Oh, wow, okay.
right, in a game.
Field goal percentage
And I
high.
think it's something like 36 points he scored before he missed a shot,
Insane.
right? Which is amazing. I think that record still stands.
Wow.
I could be, but how about some of these other players on this team? Maybe you might want to know one of these guys. Marcus Liberty.
Nope.
How about Anthony Cook?
Okay, yeah, that name.
Oh, you do? You
that
remember
name sounds
Anthony
familiar.
Cook?
Yeah. That name
He
sounds
scored
familiar.
1 point in that game.
Yikes.
Here's a name, and this is where I'm going through all these: Walter Davis, Joe Wolf, Jerome Lane, Corey Gaines. All played, all scored points, but one man did not play that game,
Okay.
and that's probably the reason why the Denver Nuggets are cursed and will never win anything, because they did this man wrong. Sitting on the bench at the end was a gentleman I believe was picked. I don't even know how he was picked. Oh, he came in the draft undrafted in 1988.
Wow.
Let me see if you can guess who he is. He played he point guarded
Okay.
the NBA champion San Antonio Spurs in the early 90s.
Check him out.
David Robinson's last year. He wins a title with
Avery Johnson.
Avery Johnson. Ding, ding, ding.
Wow.
Drum pad. We'll have that set up next
so he
time.
was 0 minutes.
0 minutes.
Weird. He must have been a really young player then.
He was drafted in 1988, so this was
so
1990.
he's a nobody at this time.
he's riding the pine. Behind who did he get? Oh no, he did play, but he had one field goal and then he sat. So
And
he
now
was on
he's a
for couple
coach in the NBA.
Now he's a
part of
coach,
coaching
champ,
teams. Yeah.
right? He
Yeah.
went on the team, but he had to lose before he got better, obviously, right? That was a crazy game, man.
Yeah. Well, do you think that Warriors team was always one of my favorite teams, but they were never going to win anything.
Yeah.
If they were in this era of the NBA,
Yeah.
they'd be champs.
They were a high-scoring team back then.
And they had two of the best shooters on the planet. Mitch
So-
Richmond, Chris Mullin,
Yeah, and
and Tim Hardaway was a point.
TMC.
Yeah, but
Run
Tim
TMC.
Hardaway wasn't a great shooter. But
No.
Chris Mullin and Mitch Richmond, whew.
People don't realize this. Like now we have a lot of white guys who are shooting balls
Yes.
in the NBA. They
Yes.
don't understand the power or how intense Chris Mullin was back in that
And a
day.
lefty, too.
And a lefty.
Yeah.
And a guy that was playing in a league that really was about black American players. Like that was it. There was no
Oh, for
Europeans.
sure. No.
So a white guy came onto that court and they were just kind of like
With a buzz cut.
shoot threes, bro. Shoot threes,
With
right?
a buzz cut, no flavor.
Yeah.
But, man, his game was stacked.
So here was the Golden State Warriors in that blowout game, 168 points. Chris Mullin,
Yeah.
Tim Hardaway,
Jeez, killer crossover.
Mitch Richmond, Alton Lister, who was
Big man.
I think he was the forward, power
yeah.
forward,
Yeah, yeah.
and Tommy Tolbert. You remember Tom Tolbert?
Nobody's.
Yeah, Tom Tolbert. I think he's an analyst now.
Yeah.
On the bench, they had Kevin Pritchard, Rod Higgins, Saronas Marcelonius,
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Tyrone Hill, and Steve Johnson.
Huh.
Tom Tolbert was one of the leading scorers that night. I think he had some how many points did he have? He had 29 points. He was one of the leaders that night. Here's players drafted after Tom Tolbert in the 1988 draft.
Oh,
Okay?
this should
I'm
be
going to see if
interesting.
you can guess. All right, so these are players who went on to have pretty amazing careers that were skipped over because someone thought picking Tom Tolbert would have been a better plan.
Okay.
This gentleman hit a game-winning three-pointer to help the Chicago Bulls win their third championship of their first three-peat.
John Paxson?
That was the first game. I'm talking about the second three-peat. Sorry, second three-peat.
Then
First
it would
game.
have been Steve Kerr.
Steve Kerr.
Right.
That's right. He was picked 50th.
Wow.
This next gentleman played on the New York Knicks. He was a formidable opponent in the down and the low. He was a fouling machine, played on the likes of teams with in the early Knicks in the early 90s. Just think about that. He went to, eventually I think he went to Charlotte Hornets eventually.
Oh, Larry Johnson?
No, not Larry Johnson.
No, he started with Charlotte.
He
and then
started
went
with
to New York.
Charlotte, yeah. This
Well,
guy has a real American New York name, Tony. You could call him Tony, I guess. Want me to just tell it to you? He was picked 53rd overall. I don't know any stats for him. All I know is he was a mean bastard, Anthony Mason.
Right.
Picked
R.I.P.
53rd that year.
R.I.P. Anthony Mason.
Avery Johnson, we mentioned, went undrafted. And our other boy is a New York point guard, one of the best they've had. Had some never won because of Michael. So always
John Starks.
John Starks, yeah, went undrafted that year
maniac.
as well.
You know, it's interesting. I just made my son rewatch 30 for 30 with Reggie Miller. Have you ever seen this?
Yeah, it's
We
amazing.
talk about going at the Knicks. Yeah, John Starks is a volatile maniac.
Wow, he was just on the wrong team.
And he just had he couldn't control himself.
Yeah.
Reggie just got up in his ass and just destroyed him.
It's because I think the NBA, the number one problem they have is they don't have real leaders. Like they put these guys in upper positions, but they're not leaders.
Yeah.
And so, you see greats who go in to the NBA and it takes them a long time to become a leader.
Yeah.
But some of them, like they put them in like Giannis now. I don't really believe he's a leader, man.
Not that guy.
He's not the team that you like. Let's go, guy. Like,
Yeah.
and they're putting him in that spot. It's
Well,
where
he's
Milwaukee
a
won't
super
win.
talent, but he needs somebody that can do more than him.
Mm-hmm.
If he had a James Harden or like a KD or LeBron James, then Giannis would be great.
Yeah.
But right now he's just a one-man machine. But that team is interesting. That Warriors team is interesting because now Tim Hardaway Jr. plays in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
He's a really good player.
Really good.
Off the bench kind of scoring machine.
Yeah.
But this Warriors team, I was always obsessed over because, man, I just used to watch these guys shoot the lights out, unguardable on offense, huge holes on defense.
Yeah.
And it completely mirrors so many of the teams that are
Yeah.
in the NBA right now.
Oh, totally.
They set the tone. That Warriors team set the tone for what the small ball three-point era of basketball is. Yeah. And in this game, there's only like 9 3-point shots taken the whole game.
Something like that. Yeah, it was really low.
Unbelievable.
It was really low.
So you're basically saying these are some of the best shooters in the world, and they're playing the entire game within the 3-point line.
Yeah. What's his name? The Michigan guy threw the ball in.
Weber?
Part of the big three. Chris Webber. Didn't he go to this team the next season?
He went to the team the next season, but I think Mitch ended up going to Sacramento or something
like that. Was a trade-off, right?
Yeah, and this was young, angry Chris Webber.
Yeah.
He was a beast.
Yeah, he was a beast.
Yeah.
And this was like, I remember, I think Mitch Richmond went to L.A. I think there was a 3-way trade or something because Richmond went to L.A. or something. Because I was just like, Mitch was the 3-point master. Even when you played NBA Live on TV, you had Mitch Richmond, you were scoring 3-pointers.
Yeah.
I always had Mitch Richmond, Chris Ma, like all those guys. They were all amazing, right? It's just Golden State, just for some reason, they had their championships and all this, but for some reason they've always had great players.
Yeah.
They've just never known what to do with them.
Well, I remember when they had that Baron Davis squad.
Baron Davis, man.
Steven Jackson, Matt Barnes. They had that crazy stack
And the dunker.
team.
Who was that dunker guy?
Jason Richardson.
Jason Richardson, one of the best ever.
Even in Phoenix, he was great. But that Warriors team was dope. They, up a couple of upsets in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But it took Steph.
Yeah.
Took Steph Curry.
Yeah. He's probably going to be the best of them all.
I think so.
Right? Except Tom Tolbert.
Monster.
Just a couple other records that happened in 1990. And funny enough, these all have to do with the Denver Nuggets, the records that are still standing. And this is cool. I think we find records that are still standing for the year and we go over them, right? Because these are records that haven't been beaten in 31 years.
Jeez.
Number one, most assists in a game. Who do you think has it? It's 30
Nuggets.
assists in the game. It came on December 30th, 1990, against the Denver Nuggets. It was the Orlando Magic. Their leading point guard.
So it's got to be Penny.
No. Penny was a small forward.
So you're saying someone got 30 assists?
30 assists in one game against the Denver Nuggets in 1990.
Against the Orlando
White
Magic.
guy.
Jeez.
Oh, man. Guys were wearing his jersey everywhere. When they had the Orlando Magic jersey of this guy was coveted by every Caucasian everywhere, man. Caucasian basketball players.
White chocolate, are we?
No, white chalk, Jason Williams. No. Here's the initials. You'll get it when I give you the initials. SS.
Scott Skiles?
Scott Skiles, still to this
so
day.
Disappointed that I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it's because this is why we're doing a 90s podcast, right? So we can remember this shit. Right?
I had a great poster of Michael Jordan posterizing Scott
Postering
Skiles.
Scott Skiles. Remember? And he's like, right?
Head in his nuts.
Right? Scott Skiles, man, still
30
has it.
assists.
30 assists. You'd think that one would be toasted by now. LeBron would get to touch that. Or
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, Westbrook maybe
Westbrook.
Harden, but wow, man.
All right, here's another record. Most points in regulation came against the lowly Denver Nuggets on November 10th.
Brutal.
8 days after they allowed the most scoring game in history. 8 days later, November 10th, 1990, they allowed, there's a couple records here, 173 points by this one team.
Damn.
This is in regulation.
Oh,
there was 107 points scored at the half.
This is a non-3-point shooting league.
Yeah. This game also holds the record for the most assists in a half, which is 33.
That's an execution.
And it was by a team in 1990 who had, was Chuck on the team at that point? No, when did Chuck go? He leave.
To go to Phoenix?
Yeah.
I think he went in 92.
92. So this was just a couple years before. So they had Kenny, probably the Jet. I can't remember. They have Kenny. They had
Are you talking about the
Phoenix
Sixers?
Suns. Phoenix
Oh, the
Suns.
Phoenix Suns.
Phoenix Suns lit up Denver Nuggets on November 10th for 173 points.
So this would have been Kevin Johnson.
Kevin Johnson. Yes, that's right.
Who is on this team? Tom Gugliotta?
Tom Gugliotta. Well, let's look this up. This is
Okay, so
Let's see
1990
if you remember while I
Phoenix
look.
Suns. I don't think Charles
Okay,
Barkley
Google.
was there yet because
1990
he won his MVP
Phoenix Suns.
92 against Phoenix. So who is on this team? Dan Marley, maybe? No, that wouldn't make sense. I think Kevin Johnson would have been the guard at the time, but to score 173 points, Phoenix didn't really have any of the stars.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm just looking it up here. Let me see who's on there.
Wow.
Let's see here. All right, so
It's going to be one of those weird rosters. No one ever thinks can score this many points.
all right, so here we go. This is the 1990-91 Phoenix Suns team, who was the highest scoring team that year. They had shooting guard Kenny Battle.
What?
They had Joe Barry Carroll. They had a guy who ended up becoming a little bit of a celebrity afterwards, Cedric Sabalas.
Right. He had a rap album out, remember?
Tom Chambers, yeah.
Right, Tom
Jeff
Chambers.
Hornacek
Wow.
was on the team. Eddie Johnson, Kevin Johnson, Andrew Lang, Dan Marley, Xavier McDonald, the X-Man.
Okay, I remember him.
Right, when you had the X-Man, you had a pretty good team.
Yeah, he was a beast. He was an angry guy.
And that's about Kurt Rambis, Mark West, Tim Perry, Ed
Okay.
Neely.
Okay, so I got
So
a few
they
of
just
those.
had a bunch of like workhorses.
173
173 points. 107 at the half.
I don't think that record will be duplicated.
Never.
No.
Still stands.
Yeah.
That's just impossible. I don't know if you can. You'd have to have 3 players hitting 10 threes. Like, I mean,
So
there's still.
how much did Denver score in that game? They must have scored low. They must have been maybe just below 100 then, because just that one score alone is close enough to
Yeah.
over half of the record points.
Let's see. Yeah, I don't know what they scored on that game. That's a good call. I didn't look that one up.
It must have been low.
Right. But
Jeez, what a trash team. I think they only won 20 games the entire season.
oh yeah, it was really bad. They
And
were
they had
like
those
really,
ugly
really
ass
bad.
rainbow jerseys that nobody wanted to wear.
Oh yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah, I think they didn't get taken seriously until Abdul Rauf showed up a few years later.
Oh,
Abdul Rauf
maybe.
came in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dikembe Mutombo and
And they all became obscure players in the NBA. Went to the
because
mountains.
Abdul Rauf was the first Colin Kaepernick of the NBA.
Yeah, he got a rough ride, eh?
Intense story, man. Yeah.
That's something we should really touch on too is
Well, we will get there.
individual players and what things that happened before Colin Kaepernick.
For sure.
Because people don't realize, like, we're going to totally get into this in politics and everything else, right? But
Civil rights in sports.
yeah,
Go
it was
hand in hand.
huge
Hand
in the
in hand.
90s, man.
Yeah.
It was huge in the 90s. Last record here from 1990, most road losses was 40 by the Sacramento Kings in the 1990-1991 season, a record that still
Wow.
holds up to this
Oh
day.
yeah, they were an atrocious team as well. Yeah, they were really bad. Bottom of the barrel.
I really don't even remember who they had.
Yeah, I don't think they had anybody worthwhile.
No, yeah, right. So they're holding on to a record. I hope they fuck it. What's your greatest memory from 1990? Do you have any?
For sports or
Yeah,
for-
just sports. Anything?
nothing that is too specific in particular, but I know we were talking about this before. It was a different league at the time, and fist fights were commonplace.
Huge.
I remember Kareem Abdul-Jabbar punching someone, and Olajuwon hit somebody.
Yeah.
It was like a normal thing.
Yeah,
And this year is synonymous with violence as well in the NBA.
yeah.
The most
30 years later.
fined game
Oh yeah, that's right.
ever in the history of the NBA.
Yes,
But when you think about the personalities, it kind of makes sense.
those are toughies.
Yeah.
Okay, so who's in the what melee are you talking about?
The 76ers against the Pistons?
Yeah,
It was-
Pistons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charles Barkley was a hothead.
Yeah.
You know, you had Rick Mahorn was a hothead.
Oh, Charles was on that team?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, I think Charles Barkley threw one of the first punches.
I would not doubt that.
Yeah, he's a maniac.
Yeah.
I mean, up until the time he retired, and the last season in the league, and he played on Houston, him and Shaq had a fight.
Yeah, that's right.
Charles whipped the ball off his head, and then they
yeah.
went at it. It's a maniac.
Oh, that's
And
great.
people don't realize he's only 6'4". Charles Barkley was a small guy.
Yeah, he wasn't big. He's just thick.
6'4", and he led the league in rebounds.
Wow. He's a beast back
Well, they
then.
called him the round man to rebound, right?
Oh, yeah.
He set the tone for players like Draymond Green to have a career.
Yeah,
There's no Draymond Green without a Charles Barkley.
that's true, eh?
Because if you've never seen Barkley play, look up some highlights. He never shuts up.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly going at the refs, going at other players, talk. He was a great player too. But same with Draymond. He never shuts up.
Yeah.
The rules kind of have to. The line that the referees give Charles Barkley and Draymond Green are different than everybody else because they never shut up.
Yeah,
They
he's
get more rope.
Charles is definitely, even when you watch him today on TNT, he's like, you could tell he's just like that feisty guy. Never really had to watch himself. You know what I mean?
doesn't give a fuck.
He's made a great career out of his personality.
Dude, he poured a cup of water over a fan's head.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Through another fan through a plate glass window.
Yeah.
Charles didn't give a fuck.
No,
man.
he didn't.
No,
he
was a
had so
different
much
kind of guy.
money.
Yeah.
He just
pay
cover
our
it up.
fines.
To cover it up.
Yeah.
We'll always talk on sports. Sports is always a big thing for us, right? All right, I'm gonna send you this next one. I'm gonna go to 90s music. 1990, buddy.
Jeez.
All right.
Transformational.
What do you? Because you were 11
Yeah.
at this point,
Yeah.
so you had to be interacting with hip hop at this point.
Okay, so the only glimpses of hip hop we got in BC were the things that made the radio, like MC Hammer.
Things that make you go,
Not even. Not
Nah,
even.
that was
There were-
93.
So Master T on Much Music.
Master
was a-
T, yes.
He was a game changer because he brought the kind of hip hop that younger people needed to hear.
Yeah.
He was bringing like Brand Nubian and like Arrested Development, all these kind of conscious hip hop groups to kind of battle some of the street hip hop that was like over the top, like NWA
Rap
was
City.
popping. Yeah, so you kind of had this balance that Master T brought to Canadians at least. But my first real like wow exposure to hip hop was I had a family member visiting from New Zealand, and he had LL Cool J's cassette with him, and he played "I Need Love" for me for the first time.
I need love.
Yeah, that was my first like I can only listen to hip hop after this experience. But the '90s for music was like, you know, everyone said it was a golden era of hip hop.
Feels like it.
Yeah.
It feels like the beginning era, right? Are you on?
Yeah. No, it was just kind of like
You're beeping out. Try use those batteries right there. I need to change out. It was a very interesting time in music because here we are getting out of the 80s, which the 80s ended in a very rocky way. And I say rocky because rock music was king at that era of
Definitely.
life. Right. So we were in a generation of long hairs and fucking disgraciados and men dressing up as women. For all of my trans fans out there, the rockers were doing it way before glam rock was like crazy, man. It was, I remember, and this is crazy to even think about this. And, you know, kids won't realize this. They'll think that they're, you know, setting a new bar and allowing people to be themselves. Dude, the late 80s, there were men literally walking around dressed as rock goddesses, like high heel boots, full makeup, hair teased, right? Like teased out or permed hair. And it was just like, dude, everybody was like, oh, wow. You either wanted to beat them up or you wanted to be them. That's how it was.
What side of the coin were you on?
I was trying to be a rocker. Okay, so here's the thing. At age 15, I really, really, truly believed I was going to be a rock star.
Wow.
I believed I was going to be a rock star. I believed I had long hair. I was like dressing tight, ripped jeans. Like I had a band.
So
had cool guys.
when did you learn you could sing though? So singing's always been a part of your
singing
life?
was my thing. Yeah, just always just kind of like rock. Wah! I used to sing. I used to sing Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses,
okay.
Skid Row. I used to sing all those songs, right? And I knew that I could sing when I sang to this girl. I sang "I Remember You" by Skid Row, and I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "That was so good." I got some action. Didn't last long. I was 15, right? And then
Monumental.
yes, and it was monumental, but. NWA changed it all in 1990.
Yes.
Changed it all, man.
Oh yeah.
And I was 15, and I remember first of all, I cut my hair for a girl for love. I didn't cut it
Wow.
for anything. I cut my hair for a girl, and then she dumped me the same day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
That's a real
it
heartbreak.
was heartbreaker.
Jeez.
Right? But, you know, I was like you, man. MC Hammer,
Yeah.
you know, all the mainstream stuff that was coming. Ice Ice Baby, I believe was in 1990.
It's gross.
Right?
Yeah.
what's it called? The Turtle Rap.
Right, Ninja Turtles.
Right? I think that was 1990.
Yeah, I would say so.
Right? What's his name? Not Criminal. The guy who did the rap.
Oh, the guy who did
Prodigy or
90s
Criminal or he did the Turtle Rap. Oh, that's a toughie.
Stupid.
That's a toughie. We're gonna have to set up Alexa for this podcast. We're gonna have to make sure Alexa's on.
Keep our trivia in check.
Right? But yeah, man, it was different. I'm gonna send it back to you on this because I want your music memory for 1990. I'm gonna give you a little reminder here.
Yes.
1990 was probably one of the biggest years in music for scandal.
Yes.
1990, if you go back, your mommy and daddy, go talk to your mommy and daddy, and they'll tell you about this. There was a little band called Millie Vanilli.
Ooh, yeah.
Who set the bar. Like, let's face it, everybody freaking lip syncs.
Mm-hmm.
Millie Vanilli was the first one to say, hey, this is the business, true business. And it was exposed that people don't sing their own songs.
Okay,
You know?
so I think these guys are a little bit different because they didn't provide any of the vocals.
Not a single one.
They were literally just puppets. Mm-hmm. Now, when you look at today's era of singers, whether it's, whoever, pop music, period, they all provide the bass vocal layer, and then they go through the digitization process
Auto-tuning
and get
and
sound beautiful and put on to records. But Millie Vanilli did nothing. There were just these great-looking guys that were ripped and had a pretty unique fashion sense.
Kick really high.
And had mad braids down to the butt. They were like all like the 90s sexual fantasy for women.
Yes, they were.
Right? They were very unique.
And here's the most amazing part about them. They never trained legs once. Not once. There was natural leg strength.
But they had some chiseled ass cheekbones.
Yes, and abs.
And 8-packs.
It's all you needed.
All the time.
It's all you fucking needed.
And the best part for me was the fact that they were outed while performing live.
Yeah. It was on MTV.
Incredible.
Remember?
Yeah.
And the track skipped.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And then people were like, whoa, wait. I remember that so clearly.
Because they had the little microphone that came outside to the mouth, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And then they just kept going, right? It was weird because everyone picked up on it, but they let it go, and then they didn't really talk about it, and that didn't really happen. No one said anything, but it exploded. And they had just won the Grammy that year. Like, that was like a month later, right? So the song "Girl, You Know It's True" was considered a rap song. Here's a crazy thing. Yeah, this is real. This is how so weird. Gross. And all you kids listening out there, you're gonna go and maybe Google Millie Vanilli rap. Just so you know, rap was very confused. White people were very confused on rap back then because it was all white people in the industry. There was no black people making decisions. No. Maybe on jazz and blues and
a tiny bit,
little bit, right? Yeah. But even still, "Girl, You Know It's True" was considered an actual rap song when it became popular, and it peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Hot Rap Singles that year in 1989.
That's so
1990.
Gross. That's so gross.
It stopped at number 2 on April, but yeah, it peaked. And what's really funny here is that it peaked at number 2 on April Fool's Day of that 1990, which was a big sign that we were all being duped, right? That's so funny. But yeah, they considered that a rap song because of that. Disgusting. I'm in love with you, girl, right? Like, because that's how confusing it was for people back then.
Yeah,
man.
and that's because the tastemakers weren't anything but white.
Oh, it's crazy.
And they dictated exactly what was determined to be hip hop.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
Girl, you know it's true.
Well, and other artists over the years have been exposed, like Ashley Simpson when she was on SNL, supposed to be performing live. Did you ever see this?
Yeah.
And they played the wrong song, and she did a goofy little shuffle and kind of got off stage. And we see so many brilliant artists that lip sync today.
Yeah.
I think the difference is, they can sing.
Yes.
Like if MJ did some live performances, some concerts where he did lip syncing in some of the songs.
He's dancing his ass
off. But he can sing. Like he can sing the lights out.
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, Beyonce lip synced that performance," but it doesn't matter. She can sing.
She's got a haircut in the fan. She can't sing,
right?
But she did sing with the haircut in the fan.
Yeah, so there's some phenomenal voices, and sometimes they got to take a break because they do 80 cities back to back to back across the world. Yeah. But Millie Vanilli did nothing.
Nothing.
And
they only got paid, I think it was something like $2 million total for everything that they did. So you know, and back then in 1990, 2 million was like 10 million today,
Big deal.
right?
I
So
think that's kind of fair.
yeah, and they got 2 million, blew it all.
Makes sense.
I saw actually one of them still alive. The other one died of AIDS in the early 2000s, I believe. Rob, I think, was the one that
Wasn't it
died.
suicide?
Maybe suicide. I think he had AIDS though.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he might have committed himself. But I saw the other one, Fab, doing
Robin Fab.
doing his song. You're surprised I know that. I'm not looking at paperwork. I know that shit. Right? Fab and Rob, Fab, I believe, was the one still alive, I think. And he sang his song. So he went on with the guy who sang Buddy's part.
Right.
And then he went on stage with them, and they had a little melody of all the Millie Vanilli songs.
Oh, it's so bad.
And the first thing that I thought of, when you can see that on YouTube if you text it, is, man, they had a lot of hits. I didn't realize how many hits they had.
Back. Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Like how talented they fucking were.
The songwriters.
And the songwriters and the guys who delivered the song sang it. Like, it was crazy, buddy. Blame it on the rain,
Massive.
motherfucker, it's falling.
Well, here's
right?
the thing, like, because now a couple of these songs are resurfacing on TikTok, and they're like TikTok trends. So my daughter's heard some of these songs, and then I tell her what the situation is, then she can't believe it.
Wow.
But all of these, so many of these artists now are imposters as well. So I don't know why it's like such a not believable thing.
I think because we are able to out people way easier now, and that it's just kind of like a Trumpism.
Yeah, and I think there was more then, like in the 90s, there was still a mystique about celebrities. Like well, for me as a kid, I actually believed that they lived in a different kind of world.
Yeah, Hollywood.
But no, they don't, right? It's the same kind of thing. It's just the money is different.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, all these celebrities now, they're all these singers now are all terrible, non-talented, you know.
So if Millie Vanilli happened today,
Oh, jeez.
what do you think would happen?
Dude, they'd be massive. They would be massive stars.
And they wouldn't care about the lip syncing.
Nobody would care. Nobody would care because they're ripped, they're attractive. Nobody would care.
We're desensitized to trauma.
I mean, dude, look at this Tekashi 6ix9ine.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing, okay? If you're not a gangster and you tell, that's not snitching. Because you're not a gangster.
Yeah, you're a straight person.
You're just a civilian. But if you're a gangster and you proclaim this gang lifestyle and then you snitch, that's a death sentence.
Yeah.
But this cockroach can do it, and everyone just kind of like, whatever, no big deal.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
The code is gone.
I think so, and I think entertainment now is just there's just so much money that we can't pick and choose anymore. Like back then, there was like 5 TV stations and 1,000 radio stations, and that was it, right? So we had to be very cautious about everything because we could lose it all, to somebody. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's true.
You could, right? So
your whole career disappears.
Oh yeah. Let's turn this fucking shit off. Oh, my buddy, still forgot about Jess. I have to call him back. So that's the 1990s music. I mean, do you got any other memories of the year 1990?
Being introduced to NWA for the first time for me was like a life-altering experience because I didn't realize you could say stuff like that on music. And I think that opened my eyes to what music could be because up until that point, a lot of the music that I heard was very polished, manufactured for your ears. Yeah, it was supposed to be pleasing to your ears. It's supposed to make you feel a certain kind of way. It was all very intense specific. Yeah. And then NWA came in and was like, fuck all of that.
Yeah, it was
change everything. You heard voices that you're not used to hearing on audio. Like Eazy-E's voice is not a normal voice. But he comes in this big braggadocious way. You're like, what? This voice doesn't make sense on audio. And I think hip-hop really transformed that because I think one unique thing that hip-hop did was introduced tones of voices that really wouldn't be accepted in any other art form. When you hear Q-Tip and that nasally flow and Phife Dawg and his flow and so many of these different kind of voices wouldn't be accepted in any other media. Yeah. Hip hop had to kind of allow this unfiltered, everybody can do it, you just got to know how to say stuff that sounds dope. Yeah. And for me that was a big wake up call cuz I was singing in choir doing the stupid little repetitive nonsense and I felt like I had a singing voice. But right when I heard that for the first time for me, I was like, oh shit, everything's going to change now. Yeah. And it did.
That's what I thought too.
It's transformative.
It did. It changed every kid. Like it's really weird because even rap changed metalheads. Hey? Yeah, I like they started like, when I think it was like Public Enemy did it with Anthrax, I think in 1990.
Huge.
Right?
I think it was Ice-T and Body Count.
Was it Body Count?
maybe not in 1990, but in the 90s,
Yeah,
Ice-T
yeah.
had Body Count as well.
Yeah, we'll explore that one day too, because that had a huge political, like that changed a lot
Yeah, it
in
did.
music and politics, and just like
And now he plays a cop.
such.
But that's okay. That's okay. It's okay.
One last thing
Still
about
legend.
music that I do know, and don't ask me how I know all this. I just love this fucking song, and I don't know why I like it so much, because I'm a DJ, and DJs like a lot of weird music,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
For whatever reason is something hits us differently.
Mm-hmm.
So 1990 is the only year that two songs of different with the same name won Grammys.
Wow.
Let's see if you can figure this out.
That's a unique fact.
So, two different songs won Grammys, but they had the same song name.
What genres of music?
One was top 40, the other one was R&B. Now, I'm going to say R&B, female group, 1990, top of their game.
I think On Vogue pops
On
up.
Vogue, yes.
Okay.
Top song was...
Man. I'm thinking
Oh, this
it's
is good.
that,
This is what the 90s podcast is
I'm
doing.
thinking it's that giving him something he can feel, but that sounds like it came later.
I'm about to give it to you.
Never Gonna Get It?
No.
What genre is the other one you said? R&B and what?
Top 40.
Top 40. On Vogue is the R&B. The top 40.
Top 40.
Top 40. Great song. Yeah, Never Gonna Get It. Isn't it? She sounds so good.
They're still good.
Yeah. It's like, I think Dawn Robinson doesn't want to be a part of it anymore, though.
Yeah, that's too bad.
What a voice.
It's-
Yeah, this is Never Gonna Get It.
Hold on
Hold
to your
on.
love.
Wow, they sound similar.
Well, yeah, it all sounded the same back then. That was the 90s flow, right?
Never ever gonna get it. It sounds exactly
Yeah,
the same.
same
You just
shit.
Replace the lyrics.
Hold On by En Vogue won R&B Song of the Year,
Wow.
the Grammys.
Pop.
What song won Song of the Year by the same name? Oh, it's tough.
Hold on. Eh?
To your love.
Pop song. Hold on. What the fuck?
My
is
jam.
This?
This is the white side of me that loves this song.
I don't think
I know there's change. Come on, man. Why do you lock yourself
I've
up in
literally
these chains?
never heard the song.
You never heard this song? No one
Wow.
could change your life except for you.
This won a Grammy?
Never let anyone step all over you. I'm singing this to you right now. Heart and your mind.
Oh my god.
What? Yeah. You gotta be better to feel this way inside. I want all my people out there sing this. Come on, here we go.
I'm
To
blank.
This was the anthem for every white female single just broke up with their boyfriend. When you hold on
okay,
for one
okay,
more day, things will go your way.
That's literally the only part that I recognize. Just to hold on. That's
Things-
the only part of the song I recognize.
This is my advice to you. All right, that's enough of that.
It's unbelievable that I
poke my
have
ears
not
out.
heard that.
You never heard that song?
I only just the whole when you that hold on part came
Yeah.
like okay that kind of rings a bell, but
Yeah.
the rest of it I've never heard.
Song of the Year, and Vogue got R&B Song of the Year. 2 names.
Wow,
Name
that
the same.
Sucks.
That's what we give you here on the 90s podcast. We give you useless information that you can go back to your mama with.
I just can't believe that won a Grammy.
That song fucking won a Grammy.
Ugh.
That song still to this day plays. I go to an event.
Strange.
I play this song. Every chick that watches Friends,
Oh, okay,
every
okay.
dude that watches Seinfeld is going to get up and start jamming in their seat, man. Happens every time.
And the same thing would happen at a party with brown people if you played that On Vogue song.
Yes.
Everybody would know it.
Dude,
Everybody would
I've
know it.
literally had people who are like, "You're amazing, DJ," because I played that stupid song. I swear to you, they're like, "I can't believe you played this song. It's amazing."
Wow.
And then you know what I followed up with? Backstreet Boys.
Oh my god.
Just keep you in the mood.
They just lose their minds.
Bro, next one's you.
Wow, this is an intense time.
We're going to head over to some politics of the 90s.
Very intense.
All right.
Yeah, I can remember a lot of tragedy in the Middle East that changed how the Middle East is set up today. Yeah. I think this is the same year that Saddam Hussein decided that Kuwait was his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when it started.
Wow. Scary times.
What do you remember about hearing about, Middle East? And this was probably the first time we've really were exposed to it. Right? What was your feeling back then? Do you remember?
My dad was kind of a militant brown person and his defense of brown people around the world. And I remember him dropping some gems on me. And you got to remember, this is pre-internet, being able to find information.
Yeah.
At this time, if we wanted info, we'd have to go to the library. We'd have to dig through reels.
Yeah.
We'd have to find books.
Oh, it's
So
bad.
there's a lot of the world we didn't know about.
Horrible.
So I remember when this popped off, this was like the first televised war, the Gulf War.
Yes.
All the time, televised, bombs dropping. It was like a ratings
CNN was
bonanza for
invented.
CNN. Yeah.
Right.
So I remember Saddam Hussein kind of rattling the saber in Iraq, and my dad would say stuff like, "Oh, he works for the U.S. He's employed by the U.S. This is just a fake war." And I remember thinking to the time, what is this guy talking about? This doesn't make sense. He's in Iraq. How does he work for the U.S.? None of it made sense to me.
Yeah.
As I got older, I realized, oh fuck, okay, the U.S. did sign Saddam's checks.
Yeah.
They funded him. They chose him. They put him there. It's one of those things where I find the U.S. always puts despots in these countries, and then when that person decides to be independent thinkers, they fuck U.S. now.
Yeah.
They for some reason end up dead.
Yeah, they did that to everyone. Did
Yeah.
it to Noriega the same, same
Gaddafi.
time. Gaddafi, they
Bin
did
Laden.
the same time, right? Bin Laden, right? I mean, this
Yeah.
is their method. They've got a tried and true method of, taking over,
Yeah.
right? And it's a weird way because, they enable you and then they disable you, right? Like they enable you, give you all your tools, and then, it's really crazy.
The infamous tag of the war on terror, which we hear constantly now,
Yeah.
was being set up in 1990.
Yeah.
The chess pieces were being put into place, and the stage is being set for what is happening now
Yeah.
in 1990. Because when the Gulf War started, the goal was to eliminate Saddam Hussein. George Bush Sr. was all about getting him out of power.
Yeah.
But he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because Saddam had a pretty significant stronghold in that area.
He did. He's very
I think-
respected.
I think what people forget is that Middle East was under control. Now it's lawless.
Yeah, it's way different now.
Now it's just a free for all. Everybody murder everybody.
Yeah.
But back then, people were scared of Saddam.
Right. So this is equivalent to. I don't even think we have something that would be equivalent to this in Canada. If someone were to go have a riot there, I'm not going to say any Catholic church or any BS like that. There's really no sacred ground that we have here.
I mean, the only people that would have sacred ground here would be the indigenous peoples.
Indigenous people.
I'm sure they have sacred ground here that
we've
they've
trampled all over.
put in
Are those
comparison.
dead?
I think so.
Yeah, just toss them in the recycling bin. Yes, that's perfect. That little black bag there is recycling for batteries.
In 1990,
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, this is a really jarring topic for a lot of people because they don't understand the conflict.
No.
The Palestine and Israel conflict, and they also don't understand that in this era, the Palestinians actually had a hero in Yasser Arafat.
Yes.
And the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation.
Yeah.
And see, the thing is with Yasser Arafat, he was fearless in condemning Israel. Now, most of the Palestinian leaders are placed there by the occupying forces, and they don't have a voice, they don't have a choice. But Yasser Arafat openly challenged Israel.
He was brutal.
He didn't give a fuck. And they had missiles, they had weaponry. Now they have nothing. Now they're decimated. Now they're throwing rocks at tanks.
They were once the most trained army in the world, like the most dangerous army in the world.
Yeah, they were
in
fearless.
the 90s. They were.
Well, they were ready because at that time, Saddam Hussein's stronghold enabled Islam to have a strong footing. And you got to understand, there's different sects to Islam. There's the Shias, there's the Sunnis, there's the Ismailis, and this was a Sunni-dominated Middle East at the time because of Saddam Hussein. And he empowered Yasser Arafat to make sure that every time there was any kind of infringement on Palestinian rights, that he, put his foot down and said, we're going to fight back. So this Temple Mount massacre, Christians love the Temple Mount because it's, the home of Bethlehem and Jesus and all that fun stuff. And Muslims love it because this is the place where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven through the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Golden Mosque. So the story is that in one of his dreams, there was like a winged creature that escorted the Prophet to heaven to go through all the stories of heaven through the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Oh, wow.
So in Islam, it's heavily revered. Christianity is heavily revered, and in Judaism is heavily revered. And there's been like a kind of like a ceasefire agreement between all the faiths that this is one area that's conflict-free zone. And this was one of the first times that Israel encroached on that and actually murdered people.
17 people died.
Yeah.
150 people injured.
Yeah, so since then, there's been a lot of these kind of events since then in the Temple Mount. But up until that time, it was unheard of that you would attack somebody there.
Yeah, and it was crazy because it was all planned. Like, this was planned days before. This wasn't something that popped off.
Yeah.
Israel, days before this, handed out gas masks to their citizens, right? Saying, like, get ready. Like, we're taking this down. Like, the amount of hate. Like, what's really crazy, what we didn't know about in the 90s was the history of hate that went between those two countries.
Brutal.
I remember the first time I was kind of exposed to it, I was like, oh, these other Jewish people hate the Jewish people. That's what I always thought it was. So, like, why are these two Jewish people fighting with each other?
Yeah.
And all I knew is they were fighting over this little strip of land the size of Walmart.
It's tiny.
Right? And that was it. And we're like, whoa, well, they're just fighting over this thing. Why? Because this is where Jesus hung out. Like, that's what I always thought back then.
For sure.
Right? And we didn't really get information, man. And you almost picked sides back then, not knowing anything about the
100%.
sides.
And I think people still pick sides when it comes to this conflict because they just don't know. They don't understand. And the worst part for me is the people that created the conflict just got to wash their hands of it and leave.
Yeah.
The UK, France, the US, they completely built this conflict after World War I people.
Yeah.
This goes back to 1921. This isn't a current thing. This jumped off with the Rothschilds when they were first finding a land for their people to return. And the Balfour Agreement and all these snaky documents that were passed through the British Empire at the time.
It's crazy that it still stands today. Like,
still
this
a
still
conflict.
happens.
How terrible are humans, man?
Wow.
You just can't get over anything.
Well, it's sad to say, not be, dismissive of it. No, they're not fighting over nothing. They're fighting over belief. They're fighting like everything is fought over, religion and belief.
My fairy tale figure in the sky is better than your fairy tale figure in the sky. And I hate to simplify it like that, but that's kind of really what it boils down to.
Yeah.
And even now, what's happening in Palestine is atrocious. Like, people don't really pay attention, but they have this settler program in Israel. I hate even calling it Israel, but they have this settler program where the Israeli government allows Israeli citizens to go to Palestinian people's homes and remove them and live there.
Oh, wow.
Just live there.
Yeah. That's
no big deal.
crazy.
This is your home now. And then the Palestinians are put into these little pockets of places. So the 90s kind of, once Yasser Arafat died, Palestinian power just died with him.
Yeah.
And it was never restored. People talk about Hamas. Hamas is meaningless. They are nothing. They're just a gang in that area.
With not good intentions.
Without good intentions and without resources.
Yeah.
But they're propped up as this big evil villain when they really have no authority.
Oh, it's so tragic that happens. Imagine living there. Like, if you're a 40-year-old man living in Israel, you imagine what you've lived through and seen in your life. We, as North Americans, can't even begin to put together what an average day for a Jewish man is over there. Hey, could you imagine?
No.
Like a 45-year-old man, he'll look through you. He'll just be like, dude, I've seen everything. I've seen you come a mile away.
Well,
like,
here's another thing that people don't understand. Like, there's a real safe space in Israel for Israelis. There's a real sheltered, safe from
like
all
no
violence
violence
place.
zone.
Yeah. For Israelis.
Where is that?
If you look at Tel Aviv,
They're
they're really like large city centers, and they're secure, man.
Wow.
Israel has the second largest military on the planet per capita.
Wow.
And they've been getting $3 billion from the U.S. since World War II.
Wow. Do you think they're just used to it and they just like, fuck it, we're just going to get this $3 billion from the States?
Oh, they don't care. They don't care.
We're not really popping off anymore.
No,
like,
they're a sponsor state. They're a sponsor state. They've been stealing resources from the Palestinians forever, right?
why does America pay for them? Like,
I hate to say it, but I truly believe that there's such a Christian nation that they want to safeguard Jesus' birthplace for his return. Because that's what Christians believe, right? Mm-hmm. That's what, I mean.
So they're fully buying into the faith and to the prophecy.
As ridiculous as it sounds, I think so. Because what are the reasoning is there?
They are pretty intense down there.
Come on, man. You see these Bible thumpers in the U.S., they're out of their minds. Wow. So I believe they're safeguarding the motherland for Jesus'
So
return.
they pay $3 billion a year because in case Jesus comes, he takes all the Americans.
Well, to make sure that the gatekeeper at the time is U.S. friendly.
The fucking myth.
Fucking bonkers.
The myth that we all buy into, the big circle, the Pope,
disgusting.
the states, the Jewish people.
Islam believes Jesus is going to return as well. Mm-hmm. They believe he's going to come back because he doesn't have an earthly grave. That's the idea. He's going to come back as well, but they don't believe he's going to come back just to Israel. They believe it's going to be like a worldwide leadership movement when he arrives and it leads all the oppressed people against the tyrants.
Wow.
Right?
Hopefully, I'm in the ground by then.
And this is a non-cannabis podcast.
Yes. 1990, October 7th, Israel handed out the gas masks on Black Monday. Mm-hmm. The next day, the Palestinians threw rocks at the Jewish people from Temple Mount.
Yeah. It's the only weapon they had.
The Israeli police killed 17 Palestinian people that day, October 8th. October 9th of 1990, Saddam Hussein threatens to bomb Israel.
I remember this, yeah.
He told Israelis today that they have, quote, no choice but to leave Arab lands. Mm-hmm. And he said Baghdad possesses a new long-range missile. And this was big back in 1990.
Dude.
Long-range missile.
Yeah.
Dude, we don't say long-range missile anymore. It sounds
I thought
old.
this was the beginning of World War III.
This is what I thought. And I was young, man. I'm just like, screw it. I'm listening to NWA. He had a long-range missile capable of reaching targets hundreds of miles away.
Yeah.
Right? And he threatened that. He went on TV and said, that's it. And that was it. That's what got the United States involved.
Bush Sr.
Said, okay, you know what? You can't say that.
Can't talk to them like that.
You can't talk. Right? He warned Saddam, though. Remember, he said, like, you can't do that.
Listen, friend.
Yeah. Friend, right? Remember? Because they were all buddies. Dude, that'd be like you, right? That'd be like you all of a sudden, you know, I see on the news or on Facebook, yo, it's ALITE. I'm in Mike's garage. He ain't here, right? I'm just going to drink his beer and I'm going to, you know, smoke his weed. And then I go on social media, you better get out of my garage, right? Like, you better get out. That's how stupid it was. They were homies.
Yeah. Saddam Hussein was handpicked by George Bush Sr.
Yeah.
While George Bush Sr. worked for the CIA to govern Iraq. Wow. And now he's telling him, come on, be a good boy.
Crazy.
Saddam was like, fuck this. I'm taking Kuwait. And I'm going to bomb Israel to shit.
And he had no long-range missiles.
Yeah.
He didn't have them.
He had missiles, but, I mean, they weren't of any significance. But the difference was he had people that believed in him.
Yeah.
That's the difference between the first Gulf War and the second Gulf War. By the time the second Gulf War came around, the people didn't believe anymore.
Yeah.
And they refused to risk
And
their
that was
lives.
because of the media.
Big part of it.
CNN really took down Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, it was that CNN was created to persuade the masses for the United States against the Gulf War to take the oil. That's all it was for, right?
100%.
That's it. CNN, we all know CNN was just a sham. But also, on this day, all right, it is not merely political, but it kind of was political. The same day that Saddam threatened to bomb Israeli, 2 Live Crew was bombing the Supreme Court.
Right.
That was the day that
Holy.
2 Live Crew went to court, the Supreme Court, and sat up there and talked about their lyrics, talked about the stuff they do at shows. Wow. They talked about the things they do backstage. They were fully exposed, and they blew the minds off of these white senators because at the time it was very waspy, you know. That's how it was.
Yeah.
We're talking you, Joe Biden, back then,
Yeah.
voting against it, you know, rapping black people, right? And, you know, they went through it, man, and they just divulged it on. You can go on YouTube and you can listen to the court proceedings.
Yeah.
To us now, it's nothing, but back then, it was a major ordeal.
It is the reason that you have parental advisory lyrics stickers
100%.
on your albums.
Still.
It is the main reason. Uncle Luke and Two Live Crew are the reason why that sticker exists.
Yeah. Tipper Gore.
And if you want to know why that sticker exists, look up some Two Live Crew. You will not be disappointed.
Dude, no one's even come close. Cardi B kind of is Two Live Crew of our time.
Yeah,
with her.
she kind of goes there.
No one's
Yeah.
really done a Two Live Crew,
Yeah, I don't think there's.
act.
Well, and I don't think you can do it without living it, right?
Yeah.
And those dudes were living it. They were
Oh,
in
yeah,
Miami, South Beach all day, just surrounded by beautiful women, and they
Brutal.
just turned it into a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going to create that now, it's not going to work. You can't have that kind of misogyny blatant in your face all day and expect to get love from the masses.
And what happened with that, if I remember, they were deemed constitutional. Like they were deemed allowed to release the music, but they had to put the warning stickers on. And if I remember right, there was one storekeeper that was ordered because if you had Two Live Crew selling in your record store, you were fined, shut down, major fines.
Yeah.
They'll seize all of the tapes.
Yeah.
You're screwed. So there was one guy in Miami who kept open, and I think he paid like $100,000 in
Jeez.
debts, but he was the only one in Florida selling, and he sold fucking thousands and thousands and thousands of
course.
things for
It's
them.
like
right?
crack.
Yeah, I know I didn't write it down, but yeah, I remember that he was a guy who stood up, and they kept coming and arresting him. Like
Yeah.
they were literally arresting the guy for selling CDs. Crazy times.
Well, and I mean, they couldn't perform the songs either. There were
couldn't
so many
perform it.
states that were very Christian states, and they couldn't use certain lyrics and say certain things.
Yeah.
But dude, they broke ground, man.
Yeah.
They changed the game for us.
Oh, they 100% changed it, and someone had to do it. And back then, it was Tipper Gore, and it was the FCC lady. She was famous.
I think when Dolores Tucker.
Dolores Tucker. Yeah. Fuck, she was rap's greatest enemy in the.
She was
in the
Cruella
90s.
DeVille for hip hop. Oh boy, yeah, she was just terrible.
She made it on all rappers' albums. Ice Cube
Dude,
hated her.
Pac called her out.
Pac called
Dolores
her
Tucker
out.
used the motherfucker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
yeah, man.
Yeah.
That was crazy times. But also on this day, which blew my mind when I read this in politics.
Okay.
Besides the fact that, in this time, exactly in 1990, Libya's Gaddafi said that Israel must be eliminated as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Happened on the same day that Mikhail Gorbachev, leader of Russia,
Yeah.
won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Amazing stuff. Deserved, man. Well
Yeah.
deserved. Yeah.
He was the last great Russian.
Mm-hmm.
The last one, man.
I think if anybody else was in power outside of Gorbachev, the U.S. and Russia would have been in a full-blown war.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gorbachev was the right person. He was
For the
needed.
time.
Yeah, he was needed.
And I think he's still alive, I think.
I'm not. God, I don't even know.
I
but-
think so. I think he's still alive. He was only in his 50s then.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah.
So I think I saw a picture. I don't know. Maybe
the
he was.
crazy thing is when you bring him up winning the Nobel Peace Prize in popular culture at the time and in movies and news all the time, he was portrayed as a warmongering lunatic.
Yeah.
But that wasn't him at all.
No.
Dude, go back and watch the Naked Gun movies. I
Yeah,
think he
yeah,
was the bad,
yeah.
the super villain with the stain on his head and stuff.
Yeah.
They portrayed him in North America as the worst thing to happen to the world, and he was a peacekeeper. It just goes to show how easily we could be manipulated then and now.
Well, and it also shows how, and I think it still is to this day, how influential the CIA is and was. And, the CIA really manipulated us through media.
Oh, huge.
They figured this out a long, long time ago about how we can make you hate people and be patriotic. If you're not patriotic, you must be a communist, and that was the thing then, right? And so media helped them do that. And all these movies, portraying Russians as the bad guys. They
Every
were always
movie.
the Russians were always the bad
Every
guys.
movie.
They still are, by the way, in Hollywood. They're still the bad guys.
For real.
Right?
But you can see who the villain of choice is based on the volume of movies directed at that ethnic group. So the 90s was all Russians, then 2000 became all Middle Eastern people, and then early in the 80s it was all Chinese, and
Yeah.
the super villains in those movies were always race baited based on what was happening in American politics at the time, right?
Based on our Cold Wars that were happening.
Pretty much.
At that
They
time.
built it that way.
Underground wars, right?
sure.
And now you look at it as like it's probably coming back to Russia again, right? You look at because you see in Hollywood now it's like Russian villain, Russia. When I audition, my buddy's like, "Yeah, I'm going out for a Russian." I'm like, "Dude, all these evil Russians being looked for, right?"
Putin's a bad motherfucker, man.
Trying to find Russian accent is very difficult. I try, right? But he won the Nobel Peace. That's really cool. Other notable Nobel Peace Prize winners: Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm.
According to Trump,
not deserved.
Not deserved, but according to Trump,
so.
Trump won the Nobel Peace Prize, right? These Time Mans of the Year,
fat
right?
fuck.
Right. So that was our. You got any other memories of politics? 1990.
In 1990, yeah, no, I just thought the world was going to end. I thought we were heading into World War III, and the constant bombardment of war information had never been seen on the news before like that. And it set the stage, man. Now you look at the news. Because of what happened in 1990.
Yeah.
Almost everything that we really see now, this kind of parade of information, started with the 90s. The ticker at the bottom.
Yeah.
Right? All these little details started in the 90s.
That's why it's so important to talk about this stuff and have a 90s podcast, right? Where we actually bring people back. Last one, man.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest inventions of the 90s. So what we're going to do is we'll have like a bunch of different subjects. We got these 4 today. So, it'll probably change every week and we'll probably go down a memory lane. But you mentioned like this was probably the biggest year.
Massive.
For inventions.
I would say so because it transformed how we live now.
Yeah.
The introduction of internet being proposed as a technology to build was proposed in 1990. By a scientist from CERN, so HTML and all of the things that power the internet was proposed in 1990.
URLs and stuff.
Yeah, and the proposition originally was for scientists to be able to share information freely without restrictions. And once they proposed it, they realized, oh shit, this has much bigger implications. So the device that you're using today to listen to this podcast, whether it's at home, whether you're in the streets, wherever you are, is powered by the brain of someone in 1990 that decided that this is going to be the first step into the future. It's
crazy. And the brains 30 years ago were sheltered brains. Like
hugely.
Like, sure there were pioneers and there were people who were making advances in technology and everything, but everything had been really, all the inventions had been really popular culture kind of up until 1990, all these Rubik's Cubes and toys and like video games. And, there wasn't anything really substantial that was being done until the internet.
Beginning, yeah.
You really think about it. Like we were still in that 80s television, movies, blockbusters, like in the theaters, like video games, like these things were all coming into their own, right? And then the internet just came and really changed everything.
And I think as society, up until that point, we had a lot of blinders. As far as what really was happening in the world. We had tons of blinders on us when it came to politics, when it came to geography, everything. Yeah. So when the internet came and it gave everybody the ability to be on the same page, information-wise.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you remember first time you went on the internet?
Yes.
Oh, you do remember?
Oh, yeah. We celebrated as a family.
You were at your house?
Yeah. My parents bought like a $4,000 desktop computer. God damn it.
Was it on pay to... pay it? You pay it every month? Was it a payoff, or was it just like we bought it?
My parents were like, buy it.
They just bought it.
Yeah. And I remember we were talking about this internet. My parents were like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Yeah. We didn't even know what we were talking about. All we knew that there was going to be something on the computer that was going to allow us to see things we've never seen before. Yeah. Like, we didn't even know what that meant. And remember hitting connect. And you remember the fax machine noises.
Yeah.
Constant nonsense noise. Yeah. And the first thing that I remember my parents looking up was, what time is it in Fiji?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And you could barely even get that information. That took like 15 minutes to show up.
Yeah.
So now I think we're so immersed in it. We take it so for granted. People that are millennials moving 2000 and forward, they don't really understand how bad technology was for us.
Oh, it was bad.
They don't get it. They get a slow Wi-Fi connection and they lose their minds.
Yeah, they don't. I would say that their equal today is like buffering. Yeah. So how irritating that you would be as a child today that your YouTube video didn't turn on right away, but it took 10 seconds to go
Yeah,
on. The amount of irritation that you feel on that was what regular use of the internet was back in 90.
It was enjoyable.
But we liked it because
We
it was
had
adventure.
no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so technology. It's like, is this really like there's going to show me shit here? Like what? Like whatever.
And there wasn't anything on the internet either at the time. The content was so limited. There was really no information. Google didn't exist. That kind of stuff wasn't around.
No.
Internet Explorer would have been, Netscape Navigator.
Netscape, AOL,
Yeah.
AOL Online.
And these were all meaningless.
You have mail.
Yeah. They were kind of like non-functioning entities.
And in 1990, you couldn't use the phone and the internet at the same time in the house.
How
unless you had separate lines.
terrible is that?
Yeah.
If you were on the internet and the phone rang and someone answered it, your internet stopped.
Your internet stopped. And you get the little thing that's circling, right? Or that it would go across the street. Tick, tick,
Did
tick,
you hear what we said?
Yeah, it's crazy. They don't understand.
Yeah, your internet just stopped. Then you gotta wait till the phone. And I don't know, growing up in a minority household with a mom that liked to be on the phone, and you couldn't use the internet for 4 hours just because she had one conversation.
Yeah, it was horrible.
It was terrible.
I think my first interaction with the internet was definitely like mid 90s, probably 95, I would say. I was probably like 18, maybe so 90, 94. I was probably 18. And I think I was looking up, yes, I do remember. I was looking up flights and mail route patterns from Mexico to Canada. And I was like, you mean we can actually...
For geography.
For geography's sakes, right? You mean we can actually track packages on this? Like, really? Straight up. That was probably my first time. And then my next real interaction was 2004. So really, I didn't really get a pure taste of the internet till 2004. Wow. Dude. Yeah, so 14-ish years after it was already... But, you know, I was kind of out in the wilderness, living my life off the grid. For a little while. Right?
Yeah,
So,
and the fact that we can remember our first interaction with the internet, I think sums it all up.
yeah.
Because most kids now would have no fucking clue what their first Google search was.
I had no idea.
It would be nothing. It would be inconsequential to their life.
Yeah.
But for us, it was an event.
Totally.
It was an event.
Yeah, it was really crazy. Which brings me to my thing that I wanted to mention about 1990s inventions, which is kind of different because I use it every day, and people use it every day now.
Okay.
It used to be something that you'd have to buy and pay for, and then you never really use it, but now people use it every day, and it's Photoshop.
Oh, wow.
1990 was the year that when the internet started, Photoshop started.
Wow.
And now it's really different because back then it was when you had a photo and you altered it, you couldn't have both. It was like now you have a new photo.
It wasn't enough memory, yeah.
It wasn't enough memory, right? So you was just like, that's it. When you altered your nose off, it's gone. Your nose is gone, right? But it's amazing how it's taken off and it's become a staple go-to for any young person now. They all know how to use it.
It's mandatory.
You all know how to use Photoshop. Even when I do my shots for acting and all that, I'm on Photoshop. I'm taking out wrinkles, right? I'm taking off little pimples or whatever. Like I'm smoothing shit out. It's crazy. And I didn't get taught. I just figured out, Googled how to do it, and then you just do it. And now it's just like a staple, must have.
And now you can replace people's face completely.
Yeah.
And back then, you could probably just put a line through your forehead or something.
Yeah.
Wow, 1990 Photoshop.
So here's some facts that I collected about Photoshop I thought were really interesting. Number one, today, 42% of the girls that go on Photoshop want to be thinner. So they're carving, they're slicing and dicing, digital slicing and dicing. 78% of 17-year-old girls are unhappy with their bodies. These are obviously Photoshop surveys that they did. Teenage girls are reported more afraid of gaining weight than getting cancer, losing their parents, or nuclear war. These are American girls.
Oh, God.
This was done in 2018, by the way.
Astonishing.
50% of boys want to make their hair look more dark and shiny. Is what they do on Facebook or Photoshop. So girls are cutting it down. Guys are like
buffing it up.
Beautiful pompadour.
That's weird.
You know, and everyone wants slight change in the background of their images. So everybody does changes. So they're saying 100% of people who do it alter their background. 100%.
That's terrible.
Don't like where they are. So if you now when you go in deep into those stats, and you think about these stats of human, like this really portrays a really messed up human being compared to the 90s even.
Pretty crummy. Yeah.
Right? Like you think about it, man. Like everyone wants a chance to edit their background. Everybody edits their background.
Yeah, I think another difference is now when I look at it in retrospect, we were very, very sheltered in the 90s.
Yeah.
And now there's so much information about everything. I think everybody's forced to explore themselves.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when people explore themselves, they find things they don't like.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Right. And behavior back then too, you know, that's all the stuff that's happening now to celebrities and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It all happened in the 90s, man, because the
enabled
90s
by
was a bad time.
Yeah.
It was a really bad time. It's cool, dude.
Good and bad.
Good and bad. But we're going to explore both the good and bad on
Yes.
this amazing podcast.
Yes, yes.
Got anything else you want to bring up?
No, that's great, man. It's a good start.
I think it's good. You can check us out on all social media. You can go, it's ALITE, IT, no apostrophe S.
Nope.
I made that mistake. They're like, Instagram reaches out and slaps you. We don't know punctuation here, son. All right, you can go ACDJ Vancouver online as well.
Yes.
If you got any questions, you got any comments for us, please, you want to sponsor us, right?
That's always
You
fun.
got a name? You think our name sucks? Or you think we should dress a little bit differently? Whatever you want, man. You just tell us. We're good. You want to get on a Zoom? You're from out of town? We'll get you on a Zoom.
It'd be interesting conversations about the 90s.
Yeah.
And you can find us also through the High Phrase Podcast, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, wherever it is. We'll make sure all the pages are connected so you don't have to look too far to find us.
All right, so here we go. Let's pick our next year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you got a year in your head?
Yes.
Okay, we'll say it at the same time, what year that we're thinking, all right? And then we'll go in the medium, and that'll be next week's.
Okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, 97.
Oh,
Oh, man.
sakes.
Jesus. We're too alike. We need individual podcasts. We can't even find a medium.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Ready? One more time. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3,
92.
95.
92.
All right, so what was that? That would be 93?
Yeah, let's
We'll
go
say
93.
93?
Yeah,
Done.
good year.
Next week, 1993, we're going to explore everything. You guys behave yourselves.
High Phrase Podcast, y'all. Peace.
Peace out.